I said, give me that. I said,
vieni con me, ti porterò lontano perché la vita è così bella, lo sai, e vedrai che troverò la strada per stare insieme a te.
Ora che mi sento bene, spengo la luce. Spero di riuscire a dimostrare che così va bene.
Ora che ci penso, mi perdo in quell'attimo dove dicevo che tutto era fantastico.
Mi sembra ieri.
E ora che è successo fa lo stesso. Se non ti cerco non vuol dire che mi hai perso.
Già sto sognando, ma adesso buonanotte a te, buonanotte a me, buonanotte che ancora non ho incontrato. Buonanotte.
When we say steel, metal, machinery, usually several words come to mind. Strong, movement, cold. In this program, we'll remove the human element. We'll look at machinery on its own. And it's incredible what fascination it can generate in the beholder.
Semplicemente, semplicemente.
La voglia di non ragionare ma vivere, sempre disposto a rischiare e riderne la gioia di quest'attimo, senza pensarci troppo, solo gustandolo. Le stesse storie, quei percorsi che non cambiano, quelle canzoni e le passioni che rimangono.
Semplicemente non scordare.
Come i libri della scuola fra le dita, la colazione ogni mattina da una vita. Semplice come incontrarsi, perdersi, poi ritrovarsi, amarsi, lasciarsi.
During the EyeMalta exercise, we went to the Malta Ship Repair. And I noticed that the place fascinated you. Maybe, I know that you said that one of your pet subjects is architecture and structures. What really would be the key word with the experience at the Malta Ship Repair?
Obviously, because it's very industrial, but it comes back to the whole man-made object.
Yeah, but for example, Joe Smith had one key word, grit.
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 As it,
you know, as in the dust, the
dirt.
metal, what would be your key word for that?
my key word would be structure. It would still be structure.
Size, maybe.
No, more structure.
Okay. And when you say structure, what do you include?
Symmetry, lots of lines, lots of shapes.
Geometry?
Geometry.
Anche oggi che ti ho cercata. Buonanotte a te, buonanotte a me, buonanotte a chi ancora non ho incontrato. Buonanotte pure a lei. Anche oggi che ti vorrei semplicemente. 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 Semplicemente.
John, during this exercise we went to the Malta Ship Repair and to the Malta Freeport, and they were very different experiences. What would you say is the stark difference between them? Well, to start with, it was a very different experience to me from any other experience because it was my first time. Not just shooting this kind of photography, this kind of subject, but it was also my first time at the dry docks and at the Malta Freeport. And
So basically they were two closed boxes before.
two closed boxes. You know what you're going in for. You know that things in there are different. You never see them out on the streets. You never see those cranes out on the streets.
Thank God.
Thank God. You know what you're expecting, but you only realize the enormity of these structures when you actually see them. And it was fascinating.
So size made an impression on you.
Yes, a huge impression. And it's something you can't conceive unless you actually see it.
Anche oggi che ti vorrei semplicemente, 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 semplicemente.
La voglia di non ragionare ma vivere, sempre disposto a rischiare e riderne la gioia di quest'attimo.
What part of engineering actually attracts you most? Is it the size? Is it the metal? Is it the whole environment? Is it the movement?
I had been to this place in my very early days of photography. Went on an outing together, and I must say the place overwhelms you. You know, I mean, everything is so huge, and everything is so cold.
Cold in
and steel,
okay.
and you know, I mean, if it's winter, it's cold. You're close to the water, you know. And I remember I went again on another two occasions on some other type of work, and you know, I always go out of the place feeling a little bit sort of depressed because you know, I mean, it's a hard job, I think, to work there. But again, as opportunities for photography, it's endless.
Semplicemente, semplicemente, semplicemente. Na 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 na. Buonanotte a te, buonanotte a me, buonanotte che ancora non ho incontrato. Buonanotte pure a lei.
Lei te dove sei?
Anche oggi che ti ho cercata. Buonanotte a te, buonanotte a me, buonanotte che ancora non ho incontrato.
These are some photos that you took while you were at the Malta Ship Repair. Can you comment on why these would be your choice of the selection of photos that you took there?
Once again, we know what a ship looks like overall, so to basically just put up ship photos is not really going to show anyone anything that they didn't really know about in the first place. So once again, you need to look for other things. You show a ship and everyone's seen a ship, show something, a detail of a ship, and then it creates something a little bit more interesting to the viewer.
Io non ti chiedo niente, il tuo saluto indifferente mi basta, ma tu non puoi più farmi male da starci male, non vali più di questa luna spenta, ricorda che...
For example, there were some photos where, for example, this photo, okay, you have the normal artifacts that you would expect in a ship repair. But for example, this photo, if I didn't know that it was taken there, I wouldn't know.
Okay, once again, as you said, the geometry of it. I mean, even something like this, you just got lines, so it's just playing with lines, playing with colour. So that's why you know, architecture and things like that interest me, because
so you love geometry, basically.
Basically, yeah.
You love the aesthetics of geometry, maybe.
And a lot of this is pretty much, you know, I think, you know, when you start doing photography, if you learn a bit about your own personality, then it'll actually give you a good idea of the type of photography that you'll end up doing. Sorry.
Sorrisi che conosco, sorrisi sulla pelle, quando eravamo terra e stelle, adesso se tu mi vuoi e se lo vuoi,
lascia che io sia il tuo brivido più grande e non andare via.
What would be the keyword that you would use to describe your experience at the ship repair yard?
Well, as I was telling you, the thing which struck me most was the size. But texture was another thing.
Vengo incontro più niente importante. E se lo vuoi, lascia che io sia.
It's a field day over there. When we went down into one of the dry docks, there isn't much.
No, technically there isn't much
There
when
isn't
you look
much.
around.
But
It's walls.
when you actually go down and look closely and look for details, the amount of texture that you can find and that you can work on to create something.
And shapes, maybe.
And shapes as well, yes. To create something more, maybe more abstract than anything else. But I'm telling you, it was a field day. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed it immensely.
Che c'è stato tra di noi, io non l'ho confuso mai. I tuoi pensieri mi sfiorano ed il passato si arrende al presente.
And then we went to the Freeport. There's the size, but
Yes.
it was a different experience.
Different, very different. At the Malta Freeport there was more activity going on.
Yes, it was a very busy day.
It was a very busy day. Apparently there were about 3 ships
Vessels,
being
yeah.
unloaded. I'm not saying that at the dry docks there isn't activity. I'm sure there is, but you don't see it that much. You don't see it because there isn't movement of these huge containers being carried from one place to another. So you don't actually, the activity doesn't really strike you at the dry docks. Whereas at the Freeport it strikes you much more.
At the sound of the falling rain, coming down like an Armageddon flame. The shame, the ones who died without a name. Yeah, the dogs howling out of key to a hymn called Faith and Misery.
You try sometimes to capture that difference. You know, at the Freeport there was more activity, operations going on. Try to capture that with still photography. It's not that
I
simple.
remember at one point there were we were looking at the gantry cranes. They were behind each other, and each one was carrying containers from one side to another. And it was a whole array of movement, which I imagine is difficult to catch on a camera, on a photo camera.
It is, especially, I mean, that day was a very, very sunny day. The light intensity was very high. It was very early afternoon, so it's not actually the ideal time. So it was quite, I tried to capture that kind of movement, trying to get that blurry movement, blurry effect, to give a sense of activity, of movement going on. But since the light intensity was so high, it wasn't that
difficult to capture.
possible.
It says the dawning of the rest of our lives on holiday.
It's been a fascinating experience here at the Malta Freeport. The huge machinery, the enormous cranes, as you can see, offer very good subjects for photography. Maybe I didn't have enough the opportunity to take detail and a few abstracts as much as I had at the Malta dry docks. Over there, the texture you could focus on was amazing. Over here it was more concentrating on vessels being unloaded from their containers and concentrating more on the operations going on the huge machinery, on the cranes, on trucks, rather than texture and detail.
It's the dawning of the rest of our lives. A better dream and different from.
For example, this was
This was inside dock number 6.
at the bottom of the
The
dock.
bottom of the
These
dock.
are actually the supports.
The
that a
supports,
ship-
exactly, the ship rests on. And you know, I mean, this is beautiful.
Did you manipulate the colors?
No, that's a straight,
That's how
straight,
it is.
straight shot.
Actually, they are blocks behind each other, so
Exactly.
you could.
Even though it's symmetrical, but I think it adds to the strength of and to the design. We were talking about design before.
Yeah.
There's a strong element of design in this picture too, because you know you have geometric shapes and
Well, actually, it's a good mix. I see it as a good mix between geometric designs and the designs that formed, you
Yeah.
know, with the rust, with the
Exactly.
with the paint. So there's part of it that is geometric and part that isn't.
in fact, as we'll see later on, there are close-ups of all parts of you know these shapes are really beautiful and they make a nice
Yeah, especially the metal and the wood.
and the colors. You know, they're monochromatic. It's all browns and
And actually, these were not manipulated.
no,
Just
not at all.
taken.
Those are straight shots.
Now this is
this is a-
rust metal. It's
This is a picture which I use later on in conjunction with another picture.
There must still be the soul that you have left behind, hidden somewhere in the deep, deep of the forest, lying among the trees. People who are too tired, they just don't look around any farther. The disappear into the eternal darkness of a fallen place. Could we still have seen it? We were there. Could we've seen it if we were little? Go with our lives.
It's enormous.
It was it the first time that you went to the bottom of a dock?
Yes, it was the first time.
When you're at the bottom of a dock, it's not something that you happen to be in
In everyday life.
unless you work at the Malta shipyard. Do you feel small or do you feel
Significant.
and you feel insignificant?
And you can't help but admire the technology. I mean, how they bring a huge tanker in there and then empty it all up again and repair it.
Yeah, actually, when you describe the action, it's like.
And I
simple.
always think of the danger of working in such a place, because
Well, what I like about this photo is possibly something insignificant for you, is that you have the dock in the foreground, the cranes, and then in the background you have the Phoenicia Hotel.
oh yes,
Which
there we
is,
are.
and
We're
the cruise
somewhere.
liner, and
We're
the-
somewhere.
yeah, and the cruise liner. So it's actually look through history and through the different industries that form part of the Maltese scenario.
That's right.
Go with our lives and lose those things behind, wrapped around our lives. We stand there voiceless, wanna live our lives until we find the way, searching for the light for eternity.
Does size really make an impression on you when you're taking photos of massive structures and the engineering structures particularly?
It does to the eye, but not really to the camera, because with the camera, depending on the type of lenses that you use, you can create the illusion of size anyway, and also the viewpoint that you use. So, for
example, here you are using, the height. You're at the bottom of the dock. These are the metal structures that you took a photo right through to create that pattern of concentric circles. For example, did you use this photo to show size, for example?
No, because usually to show size, you have to put something in it that gives the viewer an indication of scale. So, for example, if you had a person standing next to it, obviously we're aware of what size a person is, so you get the relative scale difference between the two. Without some known reference point to actual size, the rest you can create any type of illusion that you wish.
For the light, for eternity.
This area here basically is where they had all the repairs for the super yachts.
Yeah, for the expensive stuff.
Yeah, so it was actually a great experience actually being allowed to actually go into there, because it allowed us the experience of getting into a place that we would not normally have access to.
Yeah, actually the link with this part of the dock was that it is one of the oldest docks in the ship repair area, and yet it is the one with the most modern facilities for yachts.
Right.
So it was just it was a juxtaposition. For example, if you see the side of the dock, I mean that's history. It's basically an intrinsic part of Maltese history. And then you have the yacht there, which is practically not part of Malta, at least only part of Malta's recent history.
Ora che mi sento bene, spengo la luce, spero di riuscire a dimostrare che così va bene.
So we saw the photo.
Yes, of the original photo with just the dock and the Sanglia and the blue sky, okay? And this wasn't this rusty here, but because it's layered with the other image of the texture, okay, it's going a bit to extremes maybe, but I wanted to convey the message of the grittiness of the place and,
so you actually used
the industrialized atmosphere of...
Do you work in like generating a transparency of one photo onto another?
Yes, that's what we used to do before with transparencies, which we used to call sandwich, slide sandwiching used to be. But no, with the computer you can increase the strength of one layer or the other, and in fact at one point I thought that this maybe would be too strong for, but then I said no, I mean it's gonna stay like that because I love the color here compared to what's happening here.
So for you this photo actually showcases your impressions of the Malta shipyard.
Yes, you could say that. You could say that.
A rischiare e riderne la gioia di quest'attimo, senza pensarci troppo, solo gustandolo. Le stesse storie, quei percorsi che non cambiano, quelle canzoni e le passioni che rimangono.
Semplicemente non scordare,
come libri della scuola fra le dita, la colazione ogni mattina da una...
Do you put the Malta Freeport and the Malta dry docks? I mean, the common element between them was cranes, metal. As you said, there wasn't a lot of texture at the Malta Freeport. Would you say, for example, what about the human element? Even not picturing humans. I mean, these are massive machines, but operating by humans.
I felt more the human element at the dry docks.
And why is that?
Than at the Freeport. Well, probably it's because at the Freeport you don't actually see people moving around.
Carrying
welding, carrying tools, you know. They're just operating this huge machinery, operating cranes, operating trucks.
So there's more manual
and they're
labor at the dry
in
docks.
the machinery itself, in the
In the truck.
truck equipment, whatever it is. Whereas at the dry docks, even though there is that kind of machinery being operated, but you see the human element. You can really touch the human element. You see people welding, sandblasting. So yes, the human element is much more present. In
So could it be because at the Malta dry docks there was operation of hand tools, whereas at the
Yes,
Malta Freeport?
yes, I would say so. Yes, yes.
Ora che mi sento bene, spengo la luce. Spero di riuscire a dimostrare che così va bene.
Ora che ci penso, mi perdo in quell'attimo dove dicevo che tutto era fantastico.
Mi sembra ieri.
E ora che è successo fa lo stesso. Se non ti cerco non vuol dire che mi hai perso.
Già sto sognando, ma adesso buonanotte a te, buonanotte a me, buonanotte che ancora non ho incontrato, buonanotte pure a lei.
Lei, te, dove sei?
Anche oggi che ti ho cercata. Buonanotte a te, buonanotte a me, buonanotte che ancora non ho incontrato, buonanotte pure a lei. Anche oggi che ti vorrei semplicemente, 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 semplicemente.
La voglia di non ragionare ma vivere, sempre disposto a rischiare e ridere, riderne la gioia di quest'attimo.
Li tgħin turista taqsam it-triq mhux tad-daħ. Lanqas li tgħinu jfittex ristorant. Lit-turisti għejnhom u kulħadd imur tajjeb.